Hello and welcome to the European Centre of Total Quality Management. The Centre has always had a tradition of organizing innovative products and initiatives to help industry absorb new ideas and practices which are proven and which are based on world-class standards. We decided to launch an initiative by the name of Excellence 001, which is aimed at industries of all sizes and covering different sectors. The aim of Excellence 001 is really to convince senior managers that in the pursuit of excellence and raising competitive standards, they have to use an integrative, holistic, rigorous, continuous set of programs and initiatives to serve their corporate strategies and to deliver value to their customers and stakeholders. The proposition that we're making, therefore, through this initiative is that excellence resides in the spirit of using all the drivers, all the capabilities at the disposal of any organization, and particularly those that will deliver continuous and sustainable value to the customers and benefits to the organization. And the premise that we make through this series is that there are pillars of success that organizations need to focus on and pay attention to if they wish to become excellent. This session promotes the idea of modernizing a business environment by absorbing IT and the internet. Indeed, e-commerce is now the way forward, and we would like to propose in this session that mixing the hard and the soft together very much depends on organizations' ability to build the process mentality first, to integrate the various value-added activities second, and to automate thirdly. I hope you enjoy this series that we put together for you, and I hope that you will manage to absorb the principle itself, to derive some ideas and benefits from these first-hand best practice experiences that we've compiled together. And more importantly, I hope that these ideas can serve the purpose of assisting you in putting together improvement action plans and hopefully in the pursuit of excellence in your organization.
I think if I can just start off with one or two points of reflection. We have to say that ECapability or e-commerce, generally speaking, is not really technology. It's not a technological challenge. It's not a technology play. It is still fundamentally meshing our businesses together and dealing with relationships. And at the heart of e-business is this principle of partnerships, and I'll say a little bit more about this. So the challenge is more about organizational transformations. It's about ensuring that seamlessness and in the way the value chain is being managed, and supported, of course, by an infrastructure of IT. So the IT is fundamental to e-commerce, but it is not e-commerce per se. And if we want to look at it as if you like, a process, we could have a light version of an e-commerce mindset where you use basically the front end of the business to widen the channels of distribution and to access, if you like, the global customer. And this is what the vast majority of businesses are trying to do. They're trying to reach out, they're trying to be global, using the internet as a means for reaching out and touching and feeling the global customer. That's one end of the spectrum. But fundamentally, if we want to talk about ECapability, it's the second of those propositions that I would like you to consider. It's providing real-time experience, real-time access to all the aspects of the value chain. It's being able to wander inside a particular organization looking at the options they have available, discussing the pricing, discussing the delivery arrangements, discussing the terms of doing business, finalizing the business, and coming out, if you like, with an agreement, with a contract, with, if you like, a proposition, and getting it delivered to you. That is what we are talking about. This is the challenge. So this is the optimum. This is really how far e-commerce can take us. Yeah, I'll sort it out while I'm talking.
Yeah. To the other side.
Okay. What I would like to do now is continue with this theme by sharing with you a perspective on the growth of e-commerce. This is a recent survey which predicts that by the year 2003, in the US market alone, business-to-business internet commerce will grow to more than 1 trillion. I mean, this is a modest estimate by comparison to what will go on around the world. So this is looking at the US business to the business market. And this is a fraction of the potential, because it's only 10% of business sales overall. So that can give you an appreciation of the potential that we may have from the e-commerce mindset. I think right at the beginning, I have to say that it's horses for courses. When we talk about e-business or e-commerce, it is really the approach you want to adopt to deliver your business proposition. It is the means by which you want to achieve and sustain a competitive advantage. And as Tom Davenport says here, if you want your e-strategy to succeed, you'd better figure out what you want to be. Because it is the value chain possible, and out of that value chain, it is where you would like to build and sustain a competitive advantage. You know, are you at the front end, the distribution channels? Are you at the upper end where you want to manufacture? Are you a hybrid model doing a little bit of everything? So businesses have to really fundamentally examine what they would like to be, and then design an e-strategy which will support that process. But you can't be all things to all people. I think that approach is no longer valid, unfortunately. Fundamentally, however, this is where the biggest problem lies. And as this quote says, there isn't such a thing as an effective business-to-business or internet supply chain strategy in a low-trust, bottlenecked communication, 6-layer organization. Fundamentally, we have to re-engineer. We have to create the value chain. We have to link the various value-adding bits of the organization together. We have to simplify. We have to create consistency. We have to be agile. We have to base our business on speed, on responsiveness. We have to face the customer. We have to manage the customer relationship. There's a lot of conditions before we shift and transform the business from a paper-based environment to an e-based environment. But if we have the old problems, they are not going to disappear, and they are not going to go away. And an IT-based strategy will not hide or will not even disguise the problems that will impede us from establishing competitive advantage. Just some thoughts of the type of business models that you find being abundant nowadays. There are those who are what we call creators. They build a competitive advantage on creating the goods, physical goods. For example, if you look at Dell computers or Compaq, they actually manufacture products. There are also those who are producers of information online. For example, the Wall Street Journal. That's a business model, and their proposition is that they will develop and they will use other channels to reach out to the global customer. There are companies who are distributors. They don't create, but they distribute. I mean, for example, Amazon, Barnes and Noble. Very quoted examples in most of the literature that you come across. They are the ones who have the network, basically, of reaching out to the global customer. There's another business model. The brokers, online auctioneers. I'm sure that some of you, or most of you, would have purchased airline tickets, for example, from these online travel agents and so on and so forth. So that is a model that can create a competitive advantage, and that is a method, if you like, for being e-business, right? And there are what we call the extractors, really the true portals who enable us to access the world and access, if you like, the businesses that we would like to visit and do our transactions with, like Yahoo, Lycos, Alta Vista, and so on and so forth. And obviously they build their competitive advantage by their ability to provide advertising space and therefore generating advertising revenue. So different models here. So we must understand right from the beginning that the source of derivation of the competitive advantage is the means by which we're going to build our e-capability. We cannot be all things to all people. It is no longer the case. I mean, Phil probably will be able to answer this question. This is a quote from John Patterson, who is the company purchasing officer for the whole of IBM. And this is a while back now. He said, we've put the word out to all our suppliers that by the end of the year 2000, we'll only do purchasing over the internet. And when you think about the purchasing power of IBM, it's $50 billion a year and dealing with 18,000 suppliers. That can tell you the potential in terms of savings and in terms of benefits that IBM can derive. And perhaps Phil in his presentation will update us on where IBM is with this. And this will put me very nicely to the current theme, because the e-commerce basis is a basis for leveraging and is a basis, if you like, for deriving optimum benefits. This is the hottest project in the world at the moment. It is the biggest, it's hailed as the biggest internet company possible, Project Nuku, or the exchange it is called. This is something that the three main competitors, General Motors, Ford and Daimler Chrysler, have joined forces for. Initially, they were trying to, if you like, develop e-capability by managing their own individual suppliers. So it was proprietary technology, using their own databases, and they have their technology partners separately to help them with that. But they decided to join forces because the leveraging is much more attractive in that sense. The risk will become less, and it will serve the purpose that all of them aspire to achieve. The market capitalization of Exchange or Nuku is between $30 and $40 billion once they float it and it becomes public. And it is expected that the annual revenues will be about $3 billion. So we're talking about potentially a significant source of savings. And these are some quotes from the three giants. And this is from Harold Kuttner. He says, this agreement is a natural marriage. You know, we have never done anything like this as competitors. It tells you something, doesn't it? That e-commerce has redefined the nature of competition. You don't compete, if you like, on price, or you don't compete on sourcing. And in fact, it makes a lot of sense for these competitors to enlarge the cake, guarantee the future of their industries and their organizations, and then maybe compete on other criteria like customer relationship management. So that's what you don't want to see disappear. It's the customer network that you create. But the sourcing, for example, it gives them leverage, it gives them the bargaining power to decide on prices and so on and so forth. Ford, for example, have said that, you know, competition was a nice thing to have because it keeps you on edge and it keeps you highly innovative. But we must put that approach behind us now, and we must start to figure out how we can, you know, basically compete by racing together, but swimming as a team. And maybe, you know, e-commerce again is going to demonstrate how we will compete in the future. Chrysler, for example, have recognized that you can still compete, but by joining forces in having one purchasing, if you like, a model, one purchasing approach. Because we can still buy differently, we can have our own strategies for purchasing, but we can leverage the benefits because we can all share the benefits, share the costs, but share the benefits as well. What are the main goals? Why are they, doing this? What is the purpose of this? I mean, it is reported that there are two main goals for the auto trade exchange, or this Nuku. First of all is to cut costs, which is very obvious. And this will be done by streamlining purchasing processes. The suppliers will benefit because they have access to a huge purchasing power of mega large organizations put together. And if you look on the right hand side of the slide, it gives you an idea about what these three giants spend. 85 billion, 80 billion, 73 billion. It's a huge source to leverage from. And by the way, the others are following suit. They are not going to basically invest large amounts, but they want to be part of that journey. Even the likes of Toyota, for example, because Toyota have made a public statement. They said, it is not our policy to purchase our goods, our parts and what have you, through bidding and through transactioning using the internet. We believe in supplier partnerships. We believe in face-to-face contacts. However, we realize the opportunity there is for us to produce some savings. And while we are not going to go through a full-blown approach on it, we will join and we will, if you like, do some purchasing through exchange. So something for the suppliers, a lot for the suppliers in fact, but something for the OEMs as well. And this is what they want. They want to get close to the consumers. They don't want to, if you like, spend a lot of resources, energy and effort sorting out supplier selections, supplier audits, supplier management. They don't want to spend a lot of resources managing supplier relationships, and certainly they don't want to spend a lot of time looking at bids and tenders and the cheapest source of supply, because the exchange will create competition amongst suppliers. They will have to bid, they will have to sell, they will have to rid themselves of extra supplies and what have you. And the key beneficiaries are going to be the manufacturers themselves, because they are going to focus more on managing the customers, managing supply chain through real time, spending time customizing the goods for their customers. You can have your own car, your own color, your own, if you like, specifications, and the manufacturer will focus on you rather than focus on managing the suppliers. So it's more of going to be a demand-driven approach, rather than, as they call it, a stockpiling, suppliers approach. And of course, by doing that, time to market will be taken care of, because you're going to reduce from order to delivery. You're going to reduce the time significantly. In fact, by 2001, which is this year, General Motors expect to reduce the time it takes them between receiving an online order and delivering the vehicle to your doorsteps from 45 days to 10 days. That sounds frightening, doesn't it? Your own car, your own specifications, your own color, your own, and that will be delivered to your doorsteps in 10 days. So that's what we're looking for. So this is the hidden bits of exchange that people are not aware of. It will have to be so sophisticated that it will be a real-time mindset, a real-time culture. So it will have the basics, the fundamentals that some of you who have done operations management will know about, and some of the things that Phil has been associated with. It will still have sophisticated aspects related to capacity planning, demand forecasting, production planning, managing the supply chain, financial services, doing the transactions by minute, and so on and so on, and the logistics of delivery, of order entry, and so on and so forth. So that needs to be in the system. It's ambitious, but it must comply by sticking to the principles of supply chain management and value chain management. And that time will tell. whether they will find this to be a big challenge. So, what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say that ECapability or e-commerce has brought the old approach to competition to an end. So the way we understand competition and the way we teach it is probably dated now. Competition is dead. Maybe something called co-petition is the way forward. And these examples basically are a testimony that the world is going to work differently. And I can name loads of examples covering a wide range of industries where co-petition exists. In the oil and gas, for example, it's been there for years. I mean, sharing drilling costs, for example, in petroleum development, searching for oil in the Alaska, and so on and so forth. There is BP working alongside Exxon, working alongside Shell, and sharing costs to enlarge the cake, to preserve the industry, and basically to work on a win-win basis. Banking, for example, if you look at the ATM machines, I mean, you will see the links and the alliances and sharing technology to leverage from the costs, but also to maintain the customer base, because that's what you want to hold on to. You know, you can lose everything else except your customer. In healthcare, we see alliances, for example, primary care, secondary care, tertiary care, private sector and public sector working alongside, competing for beds, competing for patients, but sharing the costs. I mean, some of the technologies like imaging equipment, I mean, you may find one facility shared between 4 or 5 hospitals, and and that's quite acceptable. In the retail sector, it is happening in distribution, sharing distribution costs. It is through sharing, for example, space. I mean, you have the retailers selling their own non-branded goods alongside well-established brands. And to confuse you, they choose the same color, the same look, the same shapes and everything else, you see. Because they know that the fight is for the customer. They know that if they don't stock the branded goods, the customer may not come to their shop. What they want is the customer to come to the shop, but hopefully to choose their non-branded goods. So I think, it is accepted there. I think in the automobile sector, it is happening. You open the bonnet and it could be a Toyota engine, and the body could be a General Motors body, whatever it is, and that has been going on for years. The travel and transport, I mean, you see the alliances, one word alliance, for example, the Star Alliance, these other alliances on long haul flights, sharing the cost of fuel, sharing the cost of cargo, for example, and sharing the routes, so that the customer is not disconvenienced, and then you leverage from that point of view. The computer industry, you open the box and you will find that basically the parts probably are being supplied from the same sources amongst the various manufacturers. Software and hardware basically working together to leverage from that point of view. So it is a phenomenon, and we must accept it now that the nature of competition has changed, and the e-commerce mindset has enabled businesses to do that. What I'd like to do now is talk about competition from a collaboration point of view, because I would like to consider e-commerce or ECapability as if you like, an approach that can only be successful through collaboration. That's a hypothesis. Hopefully you will agree with me, and hopefully Phil will agree with me, that you cannot have an E-based approach to your business unless you base your approach on collaborations. You must collaborate, otherwise you're wasting your time and wasting your money. Okay, because it is about leveraging, it's about globalization, it's about reaching out. So when we talk about collaborations and e-business, we're not saying click, see it on screen, order it and wait for it to be delivered. That's the front end. That's the most basic aspect of e-commerce. That's automating the front end so that you're widening the distribution channels. But let's go back to really what the potential is, and that is real-time multi-company interactions. And that requires a cultural mindset, a new one. It requires lots of changes in the way you negotiate online, real time, in the way you supply and demand and deal with the planning aspects, online, real time, and managing the changes, the metamorphosis of the organization and the transformations online, real time. That is what e-commerce is about. And let me give you an example, a case study of a true business-to-business case study. Incidentally, the business to customer, or B2C, is the easy bit. Okay, the most complex interactions tend to happen between businesses and businesses. The design of the Boeing 777 was all done in cyberspace. First of all, the collaborations that I'm talking about was done through seamless sharing of information. All the design tools, the processes, and the information was shared between engineers, customers, project managers, the suppliers, and everybody else. A huge network of partners working together in a seamless fashion on one ambitious project. And in fact, Boeing are using this slogan, saying, it's frightening actually, just listen to this. The 777 is a bunch of parts flying together in close formation. I'm a bit worried now. So no physical model and no paper blueprints. And when those of you who have traveled in the plane, I mean it's a fascinating airplane, all done in cyberspace, all done in a very ambitious way, using so many partners and so many stakeholders in this. So what are the advantages from working in this way? Boeing is saying that, first of all, our customers don't need to wait any longer, 3 years normally, for having their plane delivered. We now plan and aim to deliver a plane between 8 and 12 months. I mean, look at that time to market. What an improvement that is. And look at the throughput, because by reducing time to market, you're going to improve your throughput. So if you manage the customer, you replenish the demand, you grow the demand, you don't take care of your suppliers because they are integrated in that value chain approach. And then the throughput is that they are planning to deliver 620 planes annually from 2003, I think, and that's an increase from 228 in 1992. I think you agree with me that is a very, very significant change and a wonderful opportunity. So we might think that by collaborating we are actually using our competitive advantage, but you don't have to share all your secrets, because what you're focusing on, the secret is the customer, managing the customer. That you don't have to share. Anything else, you could share and you could partner with others on. You need to basically manage the value chain and not, if you like, hook in people at one stage of that value chain. You must work together in a seamless fashion, sharing information, sharing the common knowledge, sharing the technology, working on a win-win basis, having probably a mutually agreed strategy, and leveraging so that the different customer bases are happy and they're retained. So you can change collaboration to competition once you touch and feel your customer. You say, that's our turf, this is your turf. You take your benefits and serve your customers, we'll take our benefits and serve our customers. And it tends to work. Petrochemicals, for example, you have joint venture projects. I mean, SABIC, my sponsor, they work and learn from Exxon, from BP, from Shell. And when the products are shipped to the marketplace, they compete like mad on keeping the customers. So from partners to competitors, and there is no problems. Oil and gas, for example. I mean, the oil is produced using Western technology. It's processed using Western technology. It's shipped And then when it hits the market, you know, again, aggressively, they compete on who is going to get the biggest slice of the cake. The first thing first is, how do we enlarge the slice of the cake? How do we leverage? You know, leveraging is a key word here. Winning e-marketplace strategy centers on collaboration and will go well beyond the catalog transact model in order to optimize value chains and the gains for all concerns. That is a statement, ladies and gentlemen, that I would like you really to remember from tonight. This is what will make e-commerce or e-business as a modern philosophy for you know, the years to come. So we used to talk about the big eating the small. Now probably the war is value chain versus value chain. And because the customer is empowered, you know, the internet empowered customer will decide basically on how the business should be done, how you should go about delivering to their expectations, and they will influence your survival, your prosperity, and you know, whether you're going to have a future. So as this quote says, executives must act now to prepare their corporations for this radical new business model. Mastering collaborative e-marketplaces is not an option, it's an imperative from your customers. The customer is king, and we'll feel it more now. I remember Phil back in November, he enlightened us by saying that his own prediction is that yes, we're going to E and do a lot of E, but he also talked about the I. And I concur with that view. So I think for me, the question is first of all to I and to E, and you know, we will still have to do business using human beings. Tom Davenport agrees with both Phil and myself, because he said this is yet another era in which the rules of e-commerce will converge with the rules of commerce. In other words, maybe abandoning the old is not necessarily a must. What we must abandon are the rigid, autocratic, inflexible, bureaucratic diseases that we have in the way we do business. But maybe we will maintain the ethos of business that has carried organizations for centuries. So it's more an evolutionary process. The revolution is basically the mindset, the way we look at the market and the way we look at the customer. So my advice, and obviously none of us are experts in this field now because it's growing, I think we still need to stick to knitting. We must continue to manage what we excel at. We don't want to be in the middle. We don't want to be in a cloud. We have to realize that if you have a customer or a customer focused approach, then that is more likely going to guarantee your future. Because at the end of the day, strategy is not an imposition. Strategy is about choice. And as long as we can carry forward the old baggage and create a competitive advantage out of it, why not? And as long as we can leverage by applying e-commerce, why not? So the I and the E will continue to go together. And on this note,
I hope you have enjoyed this session. And indeed, I hope you have managed to derive some key lessons and perhaps some prompts from the conceptual side of adopting excellence and from the application that you have just witnessed. Thank you.